Welcome to the Say Network podcast. I'm Jim Sparks, and I'm here with Megan Villalpando.
Hey, guys.
David Widoff.
Hey.
Takes everything me not to say Widoff. Abraham Guevara.
Hello.
So before we get into the whole podcast, normally we have the youth culture section here. Today we're talking in the entire podcast about youth culture. And before we get into it, why is it so important for us to understand youth culture?
Because we work with youth.
Oh, hey. That's the Jesus answer, Jesus Sunday School answer. Why does it affect our work? Besides the obvious, connecting.
Yeah, the obvious, or maybe even a little deeper, is it's all about contextualizing our work, right? I like to make this comparison, like, I think especially nowadays, a lot of people wouldn't go on a mission trip without doing some, like, research about the culture they're going to.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going, like, long-term. Like, if you're going somewhere to minister for 3 years, you would do all the research you could on that culture.
Right.
For some reason, when people, like, jump into youth ministry or any age-specific ministry, they don't think they need to do any of that contextualizing work.
Just wing it.
Right. There's like wing it. Like, I think I get the gist of this, but there's a lot of different, like, cultural dynamics going on that it's kind of comparable.
I like to, I think a lot of times the older we get, we think like we're the authority on things and stuff and we know everything.
Right.
But I think
When
sometimes...
did you discover that, by the way?
I just had a birthday last week. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think, a lot of times we think we're the expert on things and stuff, but reading these articles reminds me that the younger people have authority on things that I don't have authority on the things that they have authority on and stuff.
Yeah.
And so, it's just a reminder of, like, their worldview is different, and we have to make an effort to, like, be familiar with it and know it and be aware of, like, what they're digesting, essentially.
I think the authority of young people comes from the sheer number of them. Like, it's just the fact that they will drive where the money goes. They drive where the views and where the eyeballs go. Like, it's and they do it inadvertently. They don't know they're doing. They're just drawn to certain things, and so we need to tap into whatever they're drawn to, and figure out what it is. And there's a lot of good strategies out there that, and studies done and research, and we should always be tapping into that to find out, how can we make our message, more effective, more compelling.
I think it can help us predict trends as well, like kind of see what's on the horizon, what's coming, and prepare for it. So we're not always just responding to things, but we're trying to be a little more proactive when we address certain topics or certain issues that might be relative to people.
Yeah, I think it's weird too. Like, you think, what youth culture is kind of weird is there's so many subcultures in there, and you think, oh, well, I've been working with high school kids. I should be able to do children's ministry real quick, and it's a completely different beast, and they would destroy you if you went in unprepared.
In seconds.
Yeah, real quick, and so, it is important. And like Dave was saying, that, you would prepare for all these other things. And so going into youth ministry, it really is critical that you do research and understand a little bit. And with the knowledge of knowing that I'm not going to be an expert in it going into it.
I don't know if you're going to get to this,
Go ahead.
a little later too, but there's even other parallels that kind of make sense. Like, if you went to another culture too, you wouldn't just try to, like, take on all of their cultural traditions, like dress like them, talk like them, act like them, because it would seem super artificial and probably really offensive too.
Yep.
But that's like the
Challenge
next,
accepted.
That's like the next step people take with youth ministry sometimes is like they try to act like kids, and it's like, no, that's not the point of, like, this cross-cultural ministry in a sense.
Right.
You want to address them and meet them where they're at naturally and authentically.
Yep.
Not try to imitate it.
Yep. Yeah, that's a very good point. In almost every youth culture class that I've ever taught I spend a good 10 to 15 minutes explaining to them that they're not cool.
Right.
And it's a harsh reality. And you're going to have to go sit in your car and listen to them counting crows and die a little bit, knowing that...
Nobody likes counting crows anymore?
Yes, that these kids don't even know what crown
They don't know what this is.
crows
They
are.
don't know what they're missing out on.
The most common question I get when teaching youth culture about youth culture or talking about youth culture is, how do I get to understand the world without falling into their world and becoming of the world, as a lot of people would like to say, because it's a store at the mall. Was a store at the mall. I don't think it's a store anymore.
Not of this world.
Yeah, had a good run.
Never
dope logo.
heard of it.
I still see bumper stickers.
Yeah,
Remember
well,
now.
stickers last. Stores don't.
Yeah.
So how do you do it? You guys, like me, have studied youth culture here and there. How do you do it without falling into the trap? Dave, your method of research is primarily found in Reddit.
Yes.
So
That's a good
how
point,
do you
actually.
not get sucked into the deep Reddit culture, or are you? Blink twice if you are.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I think there's a lot of kind of easier ways to keep up on trends and things that are happening without like you say, getting sucked in or participating, like wasting your life in some of these things. And it's not even that much of a waste to begin with. But no, I mean, I think you just take it slowly too. If there's some new feature, some new social media platform that younger people are into, and you want to understand their world, you can learn about those things, try them out, have a friend. I mean, even if we're older, we probably have some friend that still is involved in some of these things. They can show you how these apps work. And when you start to understand the context, the way things are used, how people are communicating with each other, you don't have to keep using these apps if you don't like them, but understanding them will give you a sense of the context for young people's world,
Sure. Yeah.
what they're dealing with,
Yeah, I think humility when you talk to young people, and we kind of tend to, and I do sometimes tend to kind of like, you remember how you were and your mindset when you were at that age, and so you don't really take them seriously because you know how you were, but yeah, just be humble and just say, what do you guys, why do you like that? Are you into that? And listen to them talk, because you'll get little clues into why they're into, whatever app that's currently, what is it, TikTok right now? It was
TikTok, and
Vine.
you don't stop.
It was Vine a few years back. That sucker's gone,
Well, Vine is essentially TikTok.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why they're drawn to those things. Many people have nieces and nephews. I have my niece. She's right around that age. She's right there, that Gen Z age, and for them it's meme culture. They're all into the memes and all that stuff. And obviously, I tell people just jump in. I just jump in and see what they're into. And try to understand it. You don't got to start doing the same thing, but have fun with it. Have fun with whatever there is they're doing.
There's that subreddit for fellow kids.
Yeah,
It's where like companies are trying to use memes to be cool and trendy, and it's just
that's perfect though, because that's like inauthenticity.
Right.
They sniff you out.
right. That's why there's a subreddit for it. 'cause
Right.
People see the inauthenticity to it.
Right. And so just be careful, because they'll sniff you out. But if you really do like some of the things that they're into, then just enjoy it on your own. You don't got to broadcast it to everything, but it will give you a little bit of like a subconscious, upper hand when you're talking and ministering to them a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, it's something that you said about listening, not in a creepy way, but
Right.
like if I'm just at a table or I'm at, I don't know, at the core or something, I like to just listen to what they're talking about, like to be quiet and eventually, they forget that you're there and they just kind of like start talking and stuff. And I think you can gain a lot of insight that way as to what it is that they're into or what it is that is relevant to them.
All right, so I have a question then to ask you guys, because I feel like I heard something. I'm learning more about Instagram recently. Megan, you just taught me how to use stories like 2 weeks ago. It's been great, I like it now. It's fun.
Congratulations, I guess.
This is an example of how, as some of this from school too, like when I've been reading about linguistics and how people organize like the world around them, certain things will have nuance beyond just like the meaning of a word. And that's true about a lot of these social media platforms. There's nuance to how people communicate and what that means. So I've heard this phrase, and I'm not sure exactly if it's accurate, but it's like when someone slides into someone's DMs.
Yes.
Yes, Jim's laughing at me now.
Yes.
I wish we had video.
Go ahead.
So like What is the meaning of that little phrase?
Slide into the DM.
Yeah. Because what I've heard is that it's like this connotation of like you're trying to talk to someone, like get to know them. It's more than just a simple chat, right?
Well, yeah. From my understanding, is you're trying to get in to have a private conversation with someone that you would never ever have a chance of having a private conversation.
There you go. Yes. So that's like a unique sort of cultural, social aspect about DMing in Instagram. That's maybe not necessarily true of other messaging platforms, right?
They used to be called sliding into their Gmail.
Yeah.
That was not a thing.
They're sliding into their Hotmail account.
But you see what I'm getting at, though? There's like certain connotations
There's Zynga
to
profile.
Instagram, to the Zynga.
Yeah.
So when you learn about youth culture or just even new cultural features, those are the sorts of like social cognitive things that are maybe unique about different platforms. And you can learn about this just by asking around and seeing what's different about different platforms.
What I love is what's great about it too is like it's everybody's just fulfilling a need that everybody has. Like sliding into somebody's DMs or whatever. It's just you're trying to talk to somebody. Is it like you were saying, somebody that you don't think you have a chance with? But it's still. I mean, people have been doing that for generations and generations. And what's great is you can even relay stories about that kind of stuff to young people. You can find the common ground and try to like deconstruct whatever it is they're doing and try to find the human like element to it if you want to like relate, if you want to connect with them.
Yeah, I think earlier on in my working career here, I think I approached understanding youth culture differently. Like I was fairly immersed in their culture. I watched a lot of what they watched, listened to what they listened to, and then I really got tired of it. And it's probably because as I got older, I just got less relatable. Mm-hmm. And so then I ended up finding myself reading a lot more about what it is and having an understanding so that I had social capital. And then as I got older, like I felt like the get off my lawn old man type stuff on some of it. But I would say I do probably a mix of the first two, but far less than what I used to. And I spend more of my time asking kids questions, just asking them. And you guys talked about listening and how important that is. And I find that to be true as well. But when I go to camps, when I go to, like, even the kids in my Corps Cadet class, they're probably like, how many questions do you really have? Like, I'll ask 2 or 3 a week of, like, understanding their world type questions before we even get started. And so I found that to be very helpful. And I'm also learning how to ask questions in this process of, teenagers and tweenagers. It's kind of an art in itself. Probably could be a major in communications thing of
an elective.
Yeah, like how to ask questions that get meaningful answers, and so it's interesting because you have to build a lot of social capital up first to receive even more social capital, right? You have to have that trust there, and then a lot of times when you're asking a lot of questions, they feel like they're trying to get something, like you're just trying to get to somewhere and to show them I just want to know and understand them more. It helps a lot, and they'll be able to give that. But like when we're traveling to different events, it's a little more tricky. You have to ask very specific questions and kind of not care.
And when you go to like a new region or new division, it's a new culture now.
It really is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the cultural breakdown between our divisions is very, very different. And
internet helps a little bit because there's some things that we're saying, like apps and things like that they might have in common. But
but just what they say. Like I could say certain phrases in different parts of our territory, and it will resound loudly, and then others, it's just full crickets. And so having to understand that, and that's taken me several years to try to get close to understanding. And I feel like I'm only there still, is just getting close to understanding. And it is different. Some of the divisions are kind of similar, but they're very unique in a lot of ways. And particularly what's popular is very different in different locations. What's popular in Oregon isn't necessarily popular in the Southwest. And so having to understand it. And when you're teaching and you're giving references to things that they may know because you want to capture their attention, that becomes very tricky in that situation because our inherent laziness would just like to just use the joke and it'll be fine, it will work, or that reference. But you have to research it. And so a lot of times when I go to places, I ask a lot of questions and I read different things that are on the board or stuff around them to kind of understand, to make, if I'm going to make a joke or a reference or something like that it's in the correct context. But I think a lot of times where we get in trouble is we just barrel through it thinking that it's going to be fine.
I feel like I remember you talking about a speaker that came to some event once, and he was doing just that, like on the ride from the airport to the camp. He was like, hey, tell me about the audience, tell me about what they're into.
Yeah.
You know, and running through some of his content even.
Yeah, I used to be dead quiet about that kind of stuff, but now I find it to be much more helpful to kind of talk it through so that culturally correct. Like Doug Fields, wanted, when I first met him and we had a meal together, he spent the entire meal asking me about what all these acronyms were and going through all the Salvation Army lingo. And in that night, in that sermon, he was using it, and you could see our crowd just really warming up to him really quickly. Like he understands it, and nothing trips people up more than slightly wrong information. Like especially when it's innocent, and then they're like, "Oh, that's kind of cute," but but they really like it when you're speaking their language, and so yeah, that's why it's important. And so we're going to talk about 3 different articles that I've pulled up. Generally, as a practice, I'll spend anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, depending on the information, of kind of reading about youth culture every given workday. And it's usually how I start off my workday, reading about some of the stuff. It's funny, as I've gotten older, I don't understand some of it or the reason why, but it doesn't matter. That's what they do and how they roll. And so the first one is from a website that I've loved for years. It's from YPulse. And it's raised on YouTube and social media. Gen Z are more invested in online celebrities than millennials. How much do they care about them? Well, 3 in 5 follow online celebrities, creators on social media, which I kind of would have felt like that would have been higher.
Yeah.
You know, only 3, but maybe some of the parents are standing in the way from some of that kind of stuff. But anyway, over half would rather spend an afternoon with their favorite online celebrity than their favorite Hollywood celebrity. Now, this is a pretty big culture shift.
Yeah.
Because even my age growing up, it was all about movie celebrities. Like movie stars were number 1, and then TV stars were like number 2, and then you had all the rest of the low-level actors in this kind of weird pool of stuff. And then probably I would say in the 90s, TV had a big boom. And so TV stars were significant. You saw movie stars going to TV. And then, and then the 2000s, it was kind of a hotbed of mess as YouTube channels started to get created or podcast stuff started to get created. And then now we find ourselves where it's all about the online celebrity. The kids in my group, there's 12. And none of them really watch TV. They don't. They spend all their time watching YouTube channels.
Right.
And what's interesting is they're very reluctant to give up which YouTube channels that they went unless they know for a fact that everybody in that room liked it. They're really cautious about their YouTube things. I was talking to them on Sunday about it, trying to get it out. And
They don't share what they watch with their friends?
no.
That's so interesting.
Yep. At least this group that I have.
I feel like when I was younger with music, it was the opposite. It was like, oh no, I found this exclusive new band. Like you were trendier if you followed something new and unknown.
A little hipsterish.
But now they all want to watch what's popular, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
And a lot of them have their own channels too. I didn't realize how common it was. We were at the Corp several years ago, and there were like 3 kids that had their own channels, and they didn't want us to watch them either.
Oh no.
But yeah, so not only are they watching, but some of them have their own channels, and they're as simple as like reviewing a video game or reviewing. There's a lot of review ones out there.
You know, it's funny. I think my cousin actually has a video game one. He was streaming for a little bit, but
Well, and that's a big difference in culture as well, because growing up, I didn't want to watch anyone play video games. I wanted to play the video game. And when there was 3 of us there, I was like, nah.
You're counting down the seconds until you can switch controllers, right?
Yep. And But now that's one of the most popular channels on YouTube is just watching a guy play video games.
He also narrates.
Yeah, but
It's gotta, but as is funny, but a lot of it depends on the person and how well of a job they do, and
Yeah, I guess it's true. It's not just them playing.
yeah, they communicate what they're doing, and they'll engage
They're entertainers.
They're entertainers.
Yeah.
it's so bizarre.
And they're giving commentary on
Give
it.
me the dang controller. I want to
Yeah.
control that. Like the tutorial ones, like the makeup tutorial ones, those I understand because
Informative.
informative and it's kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But I didn't just the watching video games. Growing up, just dying to play video
Yeah.
games, I can't understand.
I'm
that.
with you. I'm with you. I used to do that to my cousin though. I was the other guy. I'd play it, making me watch.
Yeah. What I don't understand is like my kids, they could be playing a game on their iPad, but instead they will pull up to watch someone play
Yeah.
games. I'm
Someone
like,
else
no,
play it.
why don't you just
play
play
it
the
yourself."
game?
Yeah.
It's such a bizarre thing. But
We're old.
yeah, it's kind of get off my lawn type thing, I guess. But anyway,
But I like that's sorry, I don't want
No,
to
go ahead.
harp on, but I like that this is like that deconstruction thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like why? And then you deconstruct it, like we're saying, it's the personality of the person playing it. It's like if you were walking into the room and your favorite celebrity was playing a video game, you would kind of sit and watch their reactions to what they're doing,
Yeah.
So
is it different to Bob Ross?
yeah, no, it's not at all. It's very, very similar. I think it's a perfect example.
Right. And we all rave about it.
Right. And it's just the way he did it. I mean, yeah, going back to the era to like Mr. Rogers just putting on his shoes, you were just like, that guy really knows how to put on a shoe.
I wonder if the instructional part might be in there too. Like they are watching someone else play a game, but they're probably learning from it too.
Yeah, but my kids can't play that game.
Oh, they can't
Yeah.
play it at all.
Yeah.
So they're
I'm
literally just
"Hey,
watching
you're
it."
not- stop. I just tell them to stop watching.
Yeah. Well, even sometimes it's a person. Like if it's a game you own,
Yeah.
and you're just watching this guy. You just think he's really funny, like PewDiePie, right? He was like the big one that
Yeah.
was. But it's just a lot of people own the games that he's playing. They're cheap games. It
Yeah.
could be
Yeah.
Minecraft or whatever free game, but it's just the way he plays it and the way he engages. It's
But it's also a social capital thing, is so they could have that to talk about.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's probably a big
You
part.
know, because that's the difference. Is like we had to be good to
Right.
talk about our games, right? And if you weren't good, then you didn't. But in this case, you could still have social capital and not even be allowed to play it.
Yeah, I see my nephew. He'll quote. He'll be like just saying the weirdest thing, and I'm like, "What are you saying?
Where are these words?
Where are
coming
these words?"
from?
And like when I was a kid, I would quote a movie all day. We're quoting Jim Carrey, Ace Ventura, like or somebody stop me. We're saying that all day long, but it's so like it's so customized, and so this kid will be quoting something that him and his little tiny group of friends are all in on,
Right.
and yeah, it's pretty great though. I think it's pretty funny.
Cool. Half would be more likely to buy a product if their favorite online celebrity recommended it. That shouldn't be a surprise. It's how it's been forever, no matter the medium. 3/4 are interested in seeing online celebrities and more traditional content like TV series and movies. And so that's where there's a big flip in there. It's like they adore the YouTubers, but they're like, well, we want them to see them on the bigger screen and stuff like that. And so when I was thinking about that, is that going to change how entertainment is? Is scripted content going to change to a lesser degree of acting? Like if there was a push for these guys, these are not actors. These
Yeah.
are just very creative, very, very creative people. They're more producers than anything else. But will that change our movies or
Yeah.
our TV culture in the future? That's what's interesting to me out of this.
I like the one line in there too. It's talking about the accessibility of these YouTube stars.
Yeah.
They seem more accessible to people,
Yeah.
younger people, so that might be why they appreciate them more.
Yeah.
So then you see them in a TV show, then it's kind of even cooler to them because they maybe feel a little bit more a part of it, right?
Right. Yeah.
I agree. I feel like the path to getting into TV or movies or that kind of stuff historically has been very difficult for a lot of people. You have to have the right connections. You've got to have the right talent. I mean, there's just all these filters and things that you have to go through. But on YouTube, your stuff's just out there and anybody can watch it. And like if you gain enough following, it can catapult you to that. And so it gives this sense of anybody can do it. Anybody can put something out there and achieve, this
That was
fame
a
or whatever.
Miranda Sings.
Ugh.
Yeah. That was exactly what it was.
Yep.
It was a YouTube star. It was funny because I saw that for the long time on my Netflix feed or whatever. And I was like, what the heck is this? Who is this girl? But she's there and she's very prominent. So I'm like, you put two and two together. Obviously, she has a following for some reason. And turns out she was like a big YouTube star. My niece was like way into her and thought she was hilarious. This is already dated though, because she's not as like big anymore. There's somebody else out there that I'm probably completely unaware of. But yeah, they got their like movie deal. She got her like, Broadway deal. And all this stuff was because it was all YouTube and her doing a goofy voice.
Yeah, a lot of people have written like that Stephen Curry is a favorite for everybody because he seems like not too far of a reach from us physically.
Yeah.
Because he's not a big guy.
A superhero.
No, and he doesn't have this like, he's not like LeBron, built like LeBron. And so there's this kind of like, somewhat obtainable thing. Obviously, no one's going to be close to how he shoots.
Well, I mean, like,
Well, kind of like Dave.
Dave.
And,
Again, we need video.
and so I think it's in the same kind of thing. If it's kind of accessible, you're like, I want to get support that. It was funny because we were eating at Chick-fil-A about a month or two ago, and Link from Rhett and Link, Good Mythical Morning. You guys know that?
No.
no idea what
Gosh.
you're talking about.
Jeez. Man. We just had a
Link in
setback.
link in the show notes.
He
I was like, Zelda?
he was
Link?
sitting next to us. He was sitting next to us, and so one of the girls was talking about it. I go, "Oh, he was eating at Chick-fil-A a couple of months ago," and she mind melted, and the other ones were like, "Are you serious? Did you get his autograph? Did you get a picture with him?" I'm like, "No, I don't care." He was eating with his family. I go, "He lives in like La Cañada or something like that." He lives by us, like, and you get to see this, like,
Yeah.
kind of freak out a little bit, but yeah, so that's the new media, and it will it's probably old media, considered old media at this point, but it's their way of life. 7 in 10 say they would like to be an online celebrity. That scares the living bejesus out of me.
It's like what Megan was saying, how a
Yep.
bunch of them have their own channels.
Yeah, the youngest one was probably 10 years old that had his own channel.
Yeah, and there's some really interesting articles about really the dark side of that, or like parents really pushing their kids to do it because they see that and it's dangerous and gross when it's out of hand.
Yeah.
Because there are some really cool little things that kids do, and I think it's cool. But I had a bad experience with YouTube. I uploaded a video of my oldest doing trick shots, and it was for my family. It was kind of fun, and then and then I wrote to Ron Artest, Meta World Peace. And I said, my son would like to play horse with you, just as a joke on Twitter. And I didn't think much of it. I don't know even know why I did it initially. And I did it because I thought he would respond at the very least.
Yeah, like a little
because
joke.
he's known to like just show up at people's houses if they invite him over for
Yeah,
barbecue.
for like dinner and stuff. Yeah.
And so he retweeted it and sent it out to all of his followers.
Wow.
And then ESPN Page 2, which it might be defunct now, but it was kind of like their catch-all type thing.
Yeah.
They tweeted it out, and immediately it jumped thousands of views in the span of hours. And I wasn't paying attention to it because I didn't care. And but then the comments came, and I didn't filter our comments, like I didn't hit that button to stuff like that. And the amount of really, really gross comments about my son, he's just playing basketball. That was it. That was all he was doing, was unbelievable. Like the trolls, I mean, it was like evil. And so I immediately deleted all of them and then closed everything off. I didn't need it to go viral by any means. And but it's a very dark world because of the accessibility. This is what scares me most about all these kids who want to be YouTube stars. Are they mentally prepared for it? Because that was shocking to me. It was real dark, and because of the way it is, you could just say comments without, much recourse, and you could be hiding under an alias and different things, and people could just say whatever they want. And emotionally, that's really difficult. And
I was gonna say, there's been studies coming out
Yeah.
about just the impact of social media and commenting and messaging and all this kind of stuff and how it's impacting people.
Yeah,
It's
and
like psychological health.
I think we need to be having these conversations.
Because they quote Anthony Pettis, UFC fighter.
Mhm.
People forgot what it's like to say something and then get punched in the face.
Yeah, and it's hard, and if you put yourself in your teenage years and you're trying to do that, and people criticize you, it's brutal. Like, there's been videos that I've seen on YouTube that are just extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. Everyone believes they're extraordinary, and it still has 1,000 dislikes on it because that's just people want to do that. They don't care. And that's what's most concerning me out of this article is this desire for young people to be on YouTube because the ramifications are.
Yeah, it's just they feel like it's easy, like because it's like you were saying, Steph Curry effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
We coined that here, TM, right?
TM.
It's that that guy he doesn't look like a superhero and he did it, so maybe I could do it. And I think with YouTube especially, you're like, yeah, this is just like person with a camera, and they can talk a lot. So I think I can do it too. And a lot of kids see that and they just feel like, hey, I can do it. I have a lot to say, especially at 10, And my daughter the other day, she was like, I want to do a YouTube channel. I want to do videos. And so I recorded her and I put it on my phone and that's her channel. It's like Creed from The Office.
Yes.
It's just
I feel like that's a good point, though. It's like when kids are interested in this or involved in this, we don't have to just shut it off entirely. But I think the other angle, too, is like as parents or youth leaders, we don't want to just give free rein to this because, like you're saying, Jim, it's like super intense. And some of the things people say and do online are just crazy.
Yeah.
So we don't want to have, I think, extreme responses, outright banning
Right.
it because it's part of their culture. It's part of youth culture. But we got to be involved with it.
Yeah, you have to prepare them not only
Yeah.
for like the criticism, how to handle that, but also the predatory stuff.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
honestly, it's when you go into making a channel, that's probably the last thing you're thinking about, but that's probably some of the first things that you encounter.
Right?
Yep. Yeah, it's scary, but it's the reality, and it's probably no more scary than what our parents or
They were probably
Youth
scared like
leaders.
this when we got onto Facebook or whatnot.
video games came around.
Video
yeah.
games, yep.
Mortal Kombat. You guys
Mortal-
remember that?
Yeah,
And that's it was
congressional hearings.
congressional hearings over video games.
Get over here.
Oh, the good old days.
I know.
But that's all we got to worry about.
There's always something, but all that to say is that we again understand this and then be able to help prepare them for that world
yeah.
as much as we can. Next article, the surprising places where kids spend their time online. This was put out by Homeward. Today, kids are growing up immersed in technology and social media. They've never known a world without it. And so it's weird for them when you're like, in these social media times and
They're like, what now?
on the age of social media, they don't understand anything else.
Right.
That social media is just the term is old already.
It's just life to
I
them.
think we should just retire it because it really bothers me. They're like, now with social media, not now. We've been at it for a long time.
now in like the past 20 years.
Yes. So stop it. But kids are 83% use YouTube. That's astonishing high.
I was surprisingly high.
I still just go to YouTube if I like know what I'm looking for. Like I don't just go there to like peruse videos,
Yes.
right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I will say
I
that
go to peruse.
I've been sucked into the vortex.
Yeah.
I started watching YouTube a little bit more in the last year or something like that, different YouTube things, because it's easy.
You're
Like-
probably watching this right now on YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, and they curate things for you too,
Yes.
based on what you've been
And they're
watching.
so
It's
good
just a
at it.
pipeline.
They've gotten really good at
They're
it.
so good at it. It feeds me so many
Fun fact.
good things.
I heard somebody give a pretty good tip. If you want to kind of get a refresh, clear your history, your video history, and then start again and you'll get new things in. It'll kind of help you like not get sucked into your own like same channels of the same topics that you're into.
But what if you like it?
The thing is, I haven't done it yet because I really like what I'm into right now. So I haven't done that yet, but I'm thinking about it at some point. It's like, all right, let's give it a fresh start. Let's see what happens if I click on this video, where the rabbit hole goes, you know?
So it'll just keep showing me videos of cats, basically.
Basically, yeah.
Okay, so I just pulled up, this is just for transparency. I just pulled up YouTube to see what are the first 8 things that it would recommend.
Yes.
One is board transfers and surfing. This is a surfing little thing. I have The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and Jimmy Kimmel. All 3 of those have a clip in here. Wired Magazine, Saturday Night Live, the Dodgers, and this guy who, I don't know why this is even up because I haven't watched one of his things in a long time, but he opens up baseball cards to try to find like the holy grail rookie cards.
We were looking at that Michael Jordan one a while
yeah,
back.
and that's probably why it's in
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
This guy bought a pack from in the year which Michael Jordan was a rookie in the 80s, 84, I think, or something like that. And it's the holy grail card. And he's got white gloves. He opens it and he gets the actual card and he loses his mind so much that he accidentally spits on the card.
Just a little bit,
Just a little bit.
but enough.
But enough. And when he sent it in for authentication and appraisal, it came back and he took a hit because of that little piece of spit that
A little
hit.
water damage.
Yep, a little water damage
So
on the
bad.
card.
How is he live with himself?
Yep. It's a great
It
video.
was still worth a ton of money, though, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So they do curate quite well, and those are things that I watch. I will say I don't really watch Jimmy Fallon, but this clip is about Sebastian Maniscalco, who I recommend.
Who?
And I'll send it to you later.
Okay.
But anyway, it's it's just so good, and it really feeds our limited attention ability. Because if I see anything over 7 minutes, I'm out.
That stuff's moving to other platforms now, too, though. I was asking a few of the others in the youth department about this. The others were saying it wasn't always true on their Facebook, but in my Facebook now, it shows me little videos, like suggested videos like that. It doesn't even seem to be an ad. It's just like, here's a seal spinning around on an iceberg or something, and the next one's like a cat playing with a toy. And whenever you
the YouTube formula.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or like Instagram
when
TV.
when you stop and watch it, then it gives you more like that. Like I think I watched one video.
Yeah, the
About-
first one's free.
Right, I know, right? I watched one about like a
my
dog
gosh.
rescue. It's like one of these dogs is all mangy, and then they clean him up, and he's all happy with his adopted family. And now, yes, exactly. All the videos now are these animal rescues, so they're learning.
Yeah. 21% use Twitter. That's not a surprise.
That seems high to me.
Well,
Twitter's
I
making
find
a
it's
comeback.
different in different regions.
Yeah, that's true.
It was funny. Like the young adults in our territory don't seem to use Twitter a lot, but you go into the central, and a lot of them use it.
Actually, it is pretty popular there. I
Yeah,
remember
and
that.
so
Well, even just like I feel like older generation are tweeting, or companies and stuff, they tweet more. So
Yeah.
it's surprising to me that even that many of Gen Z is
yeah.
using.
yeah, Gen
Twitter.
Z specifically. But
Yeah, different parts. Twitter was responsible for a revolution in it was like 4 years ago in Saudi Arabia, and then the Arab Spring. It was
Oh yeah, that's right. That was
Twitter, and it was all young people. It was all very
Right.
young generation.
facilitated on Twitter.
38% use WhatsApp messaging app. 33, and we could do a whole podcast just on that particular app. 33% use Instagram. I would suspect that that's getting higher because the use of Facebook at 35% is going lower.
Yeah.
And the average age of Facebook users is rising very quickly.
It's curious. Again, I don't know if you're going to mention it, but I've seen these news stories about Instagram and even Facebook now talking about hiding likes.
Instagram is.
I saw it
Facebook
about-
is not.
I saw it about Facebook too. They
Oh,
were
really?
they were thinking about it. It was like some news story.
Yeah.
Well, Facebook owns Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Right. It kind of makes sense. They might try it on both.
Yeah, Instagram is supposed to be doing it. I don't know when, because that news has been out for a while.
Yeah.
But hiding likes, you could see how many likes you have, but they won't be
not
posted
public to people.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
I'm for that, 100% for
You know
that.
what? I've seen some criticism of it though from people who make their living off of Instagram,
Right.
essentially, like those influencers. I'm putting that in quotation marks. I'm not a huge fan of that term, but I've seen that there's been some criticism because for them that translates into like their endorsements and things like that, and without being able to track that, it makes it more difficult for them.
I do like the new trend of resorts or restaurants fighting back on Instagram influencers. It's like influencers have been able to get a lot of free stuff and move quickly and all that. But I'm wondering if it's coming to a
critical mass.
Yeah, critical mass, because now a lot of them are writing back saying, no, you come to my resort and you pay for it. Like, we don't need you. We have our own social media. We don't need all this stuff anymore.
They want like free stays and stuff.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we'll give you an Instagram post if you give us,
that's like
free nights at this resort.
That's choosing beggars on Reddit.
It really is. There's a great article too that I read recently about how SeatGeek, I think it was, traditionally the traditional model would be like, I'm paying you guys, SeatGeek, I'm paying you guys to mention SeatGeek, and I'll give you a copy which to read in your things.
Yeah.
But and I can't remember the user, but he was like, no, I'm not I'm not going to do that. That doesn't like flow with my creativity of what I do. And so he said, what I could do is if you give me 2 tickets to the World Series, then I'll just give them to someone, like a giveaway. Like I'll walk up to him and we'll make a video around that. And it exploded, and they've done it 10 more times, and they've gotten way more traction off his stuff.
Interesting.
Than stuff. So and what's interesting is companies are allowing the users, the influencers, to kind of dictate how their brand is being used creatively, which is kind of cool. It's obviously a bit of a risk.
Kind of shows the power they have.
It really does show the power that they have. Yeah. So yeah, 34% on Snapchat. Snapchat's been struggling.
I was wondering about that with Instagram introducing stories and all that kind of stuff. It does many of the functions of Snapchat.
Yeah,
now.
and so I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about these behemoths still just taking out startups because they have that power. So if Snapchat creates something, then Facebook and Instagram could
copy
it, and they already have the people, and so they're able to do that kind of stuff. They just have so much power, and it's hard to put a dent in any of that stuff. And because I don't know if those are able to be patented or any of that kind of stuff, but they just take the ideas, and they're going to win because they have more people. It's a rough road for startups. Because, I mean, Snapchat, I'm trying to think of another one that startup that took a giant market share out of anything. But Snapchat.
The only one I can think of is Instagram out of Facebook at one point, and I think Facebook jumped on buying out Instagram for that.
And wait, Vine was related to something too, and that died.
Twitter, yeah. Yep. So I don't know. It's a challenge for the little people. Our average amount of time spent online, YouTube, weekdays, 1 hour and 25 minutes a day. Weekends, 1 hour and 49 minutes. That's crazy high. That's scary. All of them are a little over an hour, both on weekdays and weekends. Which
especially if you're using all of these, though.
Yeah. What's interesting is that there's not a giant jump between usage in weekdays and on weekends. And that's probably a bit of a culture shift too, for like how we would have grown up. It was like, no, you got to get this crap done first before you're able to do anything. What do they do online? They watch videos. 87% YouTube. They watch videos. Videos are king right now. They communicate with family members.
I heard somebody say something that YouTube became it was like the printing press for videos.
Oh, that's interesting.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's what happened. As in,
what YouTube has done for me is recognize how many incredibly creative and talented people are in this world that don't get much at all, right?
And that you would wait years for your big break,
Yeah.
maybe do something in front of a producer, but now it's like, just do it,
Yeah, it is amazing.
I like the comparison, Abe, because like when the printing press came out, if I'm remembering things right, a lot of like the academics and scholars in the time were like, this is the worst thing ever. And now anyone can publish their drivel to the masses.
Exactly.
And that's what people say about YouTube. It's like,
Right.
why would anyone watch all this garbage? It's just full of nothing.
But it's historically, like after the printing press, there was that's exactly what happened. And also
Right.
it's like the Reformation. Like
Yeah.
it helped with the Reformation, but also all these other denominations that sprouted out because everybody could spread their ideas. And it becomes like this like crazy fight for many years. And then eventually like whatever's left is usually more truthful, a little bit better, higher quality,
Some consolidation.
There's some consolidation. And I even think like, I don't
interesting,
want to
actually.
go off topic, but yeah. Anyways.
I like some of that, actually. That's kind of fascinating.
This is like a window into our department,
This
the
is,
youth
this
department.
is basically
It
us.
is, and it becomes a rabbit hole, and we could
Seriously. We got to talk on this more later, Abe, okay?
I'd like to bookmark this for 1:15 p.m.
A cubicle conversation.
if you don't mind that, and between your favorite dessert question that comes around that time as well. What's on the menu today, Dave?
Oh, I don't really know because it's Tuesday, so there's tomato bisque, and that's what I'm all about. So
Oh, okay.
I don't pay attention to the rest of it.
Nothing else
Read
matters
one
to
thing on the
Dave.
menu.
You had
Every-
me at tomato bisque.
Every Tuesday, it's tomato bisque, and it's the best.
All right. All right. Switching gears just a little bit. We are going to Carey Nieuwhof, a very likable blogger and podcast. Found this to be interesting. 5 things preachers should stop doing. One thing about Carey Nieuwhof's titles, they're always intriguing to me. But 5 things they should stop doing. Number 1, stop pretending. I agree.
Yeah. Obviously. I mean, that goes back to that authenticity thing we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
but it's just so important with youth because they see through that stuff.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me is so I went to University of Phoenix, and I remember when wireless just was becoming available, like where you could log onto your computer wirelessly when I went, and
Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi.
Oh, that,
yeah. And we had an instructor who was introducing himself, and he was saying all these like amazing things, and I was like, wow, this guy is like Superman, right? But my sniffer was up. I'm like, I don't really believe him. Like, I just don't. This is too good to be true. So then he started talking about how he raced these enduro races, and I forgot what they were called. But Mark, what's the guy who created Survivor? Mark Burnett.
Mark Burnett.
Mark Burnett created this, and it was like this crazy adventure race that took days, right? And he said he was on the winning team. Well, I had followed all that stuff.
Amazing
and
Race?
No. This was like
Earlier, right?
crazy. Like they had to climb mountains. It was very rigorous. Like you had to be in incredible shape to do it. And you had to navigate your own way. And you were with a team of like 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
And all of you had to complete the race. And
Eco Challenge.
Eco Challenge, there it is. And so I was a big fan of the Eco Challenge, and I'm watching it going, gosh, I don't forget faces, and I've never seen that guy on things. But it's all, when they showed it on TV, it was all edited. So easily you could have been cut out. Well, then I'm like, wait a second, these computers could look things up right now. And so right there in the classroom, I looked it up, and I wrote his name down. Nothing came up, and then I put all American teams that have competed in the Eco Challenge, and I went through each one of them individually, and his name was not on there, and he was lying. He was lying, and
Were you using Netscape search for this?
a dog pile or something like
That's
that.
before Google.
So but I just remember having, I like unlocked something in. I was like, I could fact check
Right.
anything right now.
Power of this thing.
Yes, and it's amazing. And I think the pretending part is like some stories and stuff like that don't add up. People could look that up while you're sitting there speaking.
I had an experience sort of like that where I started realizing, oh my gosh, the power was when I had a friend I was working with, and I'd always ask him questions, and he was just like, Google it. He'd always tell me that. And I'm like, yeah, but and he's all like, yeah, but you could just literally just Google it. And I wouldn't Google it. I'd just keep asking him. He's like, dude, just Google it. And I'm like, all right, fine. And that changed my life.
Yeah, that's it's different. What it does for me when I speak is heightens my insecurities even more. I'm like,
Yeah.
I got to make sure I say this right.
This is okay. So my wife and I were noticing this with a lot of younger folks. So when we talk with them and we're having this conversation, if I ever rattle off some fact, right away they pull out their phones and they start looking it up and they go, "Oh yeah, it turns out you weren't lying to me right now."
They're fact checking
They're
you
fact
on the
checking me
spot.
all the time. You know, it's rough. Now it is a lot of pressure when you have these conversations.
Yeah, and there's another side to pretending as well, of just having a different voice, a different persona when you're up there. And you know, I think for generations, preachers were thought to be talking a certain way,
Right.
And you know, hanging on different words a certain way, leaning on a little Jesus type
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, man.
And
Every great preacher has his own way of saying Jesus.
right, and so and Dave's mentioned authenticity several times already. I think that's what congregations want more than ever, and particularly young people. And just be yourself up there. It doesn't have to be a polished.
Yeah.
Well, I think the reason is
Performance.
because of trust. People want
Yeah.
to trust you,
Yeah.
and how can you be trusted if you're
Right.
portraying different personas
Yeah.
and things that aren't really authentically
Yeah.
you?
Another callback even is like the relatability too. If this YouTube star concept is translated into the church, like we have to be relatable to people if we're ministry leaders.
Yeah.
And we can't just be some other individual, because then we're representing a faith that would also seem unattainable to them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think it's probably more important than we're even talking about, like of just being real in front
Yeah.
of people, and also I think a lot of it has part of that authenticity and that realness is sharing the preacher sharing their feelings on that or their struggles on that, because that didn't always happen growing up too. It was they're going to get up and they're going to tell you how to live, and then we're going to go on our way, and that was it. And what they said, that was it. But I think now we want a more like, hey, does that involve you too? You know, or does that apply to you as well? I think that's important. Number 2 is stop being content weak. Be theologically informed. Dave, you have any thoughts on this by any chance?
No. No, of course I love it. That's great. Yeah.
I think if you're theologically informed, then you must do an equal amount of effort in communicating that as well, because theology is rich and wonderful, but you got to be able to it's almost a craft that you know, in taking deep theological concepts and preaching it to a lot of people
Yeah.
and making it accessible. You know,
It's a tough one to fit with the authenticity angle, though, because sometimes, like, we feel maybe inadequate and we feel like we want to stretch towards this. So we read someone else's theology and then we just try to, like, parrot it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't come off authentic because it's not really internalized for ourselves. The
Right.
tough part about this is that it takes work.
Yeah.
It takes
Yeah.
hard work. And we got to be okay with that.
Yeah.
We got to give people the grace to do the hard work, too. Say, it's all right. You know, you focus on this. Take the time you need. Make it good.
I think also just not being afraid to share that. Like when you're talking to young people, they can handle more than sometimes I think we give them credit for.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I remember, I think it was like a year or two, I was at a divisional youth retreat and I did a whole class on how to study the Bible with like teenagers, and they were so into it. Like they
Right.
could understand it, and they were making their best effort, and they genuinely wanted to like learn that. And so
Yeah.
I think we can never underestimate, but I think it goes back to Abraham's point that we have to translate it, you know, in a way and put that time in, put that work in to be able to communicate that effectively to that age. But I don't think we should, you know, hold back necessarily on the level that I guess just don't underestimate how much they can understand.
Yeah.
I think too, when you're teaching theology and you're well versed in theology and you're just giving it to them in a way they could understand, you're also sharing a part of yourself. Like it is a part of who you are, and there is just authenticity in that, and just sharing something that's important to you, and communicating why this is important to you as well. I heard somebody say, this is one of those flip flop statements or whatever, but I thought this one was great. It was like, people always say practice what you preach, but it should be preach what you practice. Like don't get up there and start talking about something that you don't have any experience in, and like you were saying, like if it's something that is a little more difficult, let it kind of like sink into you. Take some time before you actually present it, live with it for a few months,
And it becomes more authentic. Again, I just had a conversation with somebody about the value of small groups and community, and we were talking about redwoods and how important that is. And the reason why I felt like I was encouraging them, if like you need to have community yourself, and if you're experiencing the benefits of community, it's a whole lot easier to communicate that to other people because you're in a regular practice and you're in that on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, there's freedom too when you're comfortable, and you know that, hey, I've done this and understand it, and you give a different delivery when you're more free with your, I'm not doubting what I have to say at this point, or it's not entirely true as well, or you've just stolen somebody else's work and you're trying to be amazing,
Right.
with somebody else's work. Just
And you got fact checkers now.
yeah. I mean, I do it.
Yeah.
There's several times where I do it. I was at a conference recently, and the lady said that something, she made up a word, and I was like, I've heard that before. It's possible. I always say it's possible,
Yeah.
but no, I looked it up. No, it was not
Somebody
made
else.
up. Yeah,
That's
and it's not their fault. They probably thought that they made it up, but
yeah. You ever look up a sermon title from some speaker or preacher, and it's like you find that exact sermon somewhere else?
oh no. Yeah.
Change the title at least, right?
Yes, exactly.
Hey, Dave, put your mic a little closer.
Oh, sorry.
Number 3, stop being boring.
Oh my gosh, yes.
What's boring though?
What's boring? Obviously, I think people want to see stuff apply into their life from Scripture. So if you're not hitting that application, I think not all the time. You can give really interesting sermons that talk about Bible backgrounds and culture and words and stuff. But after a while, if you never give the applications, people will get bored of it. It'll be interesting academically, but it won't have that heart change. And I have kind of 2 professors that I remember still who talked about some of these issues. One of them would say that, this process of exegesis, of interpreting Scripture, it's not done until application. And I don't think he meant until you've covered application. He meant the entire process is not done until individuals have changed how they live in daily life. And I like that idea that teaching it's more than just 5 steps of content, including application, but it's actually the application itself. That's the end of teaching. And
Disciple.
it's really great. But I had another professor at Moody. He would say in preaching class that the worst thing you can do as a preacher is to make the Word of God boring, which is very strong to say because there's a lot of boring preachers, But his point was so true. It's this is God's living Word, and it's kind of a shame if we make it boring. It's living and active, and it fits into our lives, and it tells us how to live. How are we making this lame?
There's a little bit of a skill to preaching itself,
Sure.
to the art of communication. You see, there's comedians that spend, years developing that. It's just an onstage communication with a microphone, just you. But there's definitely an art, to it.
Yeah.
I think don't give too much information. Just rattling off information to kind of show the weight of your brain can be there's a little bit of hubris up there.
Right.
Just be careful with that. And then also I think focus what you're talking about. Just focus on the thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then
There was a great one they taught us in seminary about using biblical languages in your teaching. They said it, biblical languages in preaching is like underwear.
That's a good one. Yeah,
It's great support, but you don't got to go showing it around to everybody.
Yeah, that's good, man.
So I think it was
really
great.
like that.
Well, I always like when people give me 7 Greek words in one thing. I'm like, I'm not.
It doesn't make it one word to another doesn't make any
I
difference.
feel like that was a trend for a while.
Yeah,
a couple years back.
totally was.
The original word in Greek is
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything to anyone because it's just some other nonsensical term. But you can still use that information. I was preaching at Torrance on Sunday, and I was talking about this word hostility and enmity. And I looked it up, and it occurs in 5 other verses. Now, it's the same Greek word, but I didn't bother telling them what the Greek word was because it doesn't make a difference to them. But I can still point out how the different uses show that this word may have a little bit of a nuance. And it was about how people can be sort of diametrically opposed to each other. It's not just being annoyed or mad at someone. So you can get the nuance without all the extra stuff,
I always thought a good, stale joke would be And in Spanish, this word is. Just give him like a.
Oh, right.
the word
Yeah, I
in
like Spanish.
and it means the exact same thing.
That's my favorite one in Greek too. Is like I feel like most of the time you look up stuff anyways, and it's like, well, this word for love in Greek means love.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not all the time, but you know
Right.
what I mean.
Yeah.
A lot of time it is just equivalent.
I think too. This is where people get to number one, according to Carrie Newhoff, of stop pretending.
Oh yeah.
I think you start pretending when you try to not be what your perception is of boring. So like you have this thing, maybe you watch someone on TV and how they communicate, or your favorite speaker, and you're like, I want to be like that. I want to cover 30 miles of walking across the stage like they do, because that seems like effective. And you start picking apart, and then your sermon delivery becomes Frankenstein.
Yeah.
It's got all these things, and then it could really run to boring, and because it's not you, it's not genuine,
Yeah.
it's not who you are. And I always tell people, like particularly when I'm talking to people about giving your testimony or doing anything in front of people in a church setting, is it's one of the few settings where you're doing something that everyone in there is kind of championing you. They want you to succeed. It's not like they're like, oh, I really hope he bombs this.
I hope
sermon."
this is super awkward because I
Right.
want to sit here and listen to
Right.
someone that's super awkward.
No one does. They want it to be good, and the level of grace
Yeah.
from that group is higher than most. And there's critical people in there for sure. And so you just being yourself and kind of, being yourself obviously is important. But when going back to what Dave was saying a little bit earlier, when you're talking about like Jesus changing the world and being created in this world, it's hard to not get excited. Like,
Right.
there should be a level of excitement on it. It's crazy.
If that's meaningful to you, and it should be, then it should come out naturally in your preaching.
Exactly.
If it has made no impact on your life, then it's going to be real fake and false. And
Yeah. And your meaningful delivery carries massive amount of weights. Like
Yeah.
because you're like, I could buy into it. It doesn't matter. Like I've heard speakers that are very monotone, but man, they're so like you're locked in because you're like, man, I like this person. They're speaking the right language.
I think there's ways too where, like, if you're getting into some of these sorts of things, teaching, preaching, doing classes and things, if you're afraid that you're maybe not engaging, you're not interactive, maybe your emotions aren't coming through, it doesn't mean you have to sit there and stay there. It doesn't mean you can't change a little bit of yourself in this regard. That's not fake. I think it takes tapping into the content that you're really dealing with so that you can become a better preacher, a better teacher. You can become more of a, we talk about like pathos in preaching, which is your emotional center sort of coming out. You can foster that and help it come to life. But again, it's got to be from a natural origin, not from your imitation of some other really engaging speaker.
Yeah.
So I want to put that room in there for development. Don't
Yeah.
just stay where you are,
Right.
but become a better version of who you are as a speaker, not someone else's version.
Yeah. And if you go full circle of understanding the culture of your people,
Yeah.
then you deliver it different.
Yeah.
Right.
I could do the exact same sermon in two completely different ways based off where I'm at.
Yeah. And that's not artificial. It's
Right.
coming from yourself. You know?
Yep. And you're just trying to reach that audience and speak a similar language to them. Does boring and time have anything to do with each other?
Yes. Sorry.
Wow. Wow. Abraham, do you have an opinion on this?
Yes. You can cut the band. I'm not taking it personal or anything. But you can cut the worship team, cut a song out, but nobody ever cuts the preacher.
Yeah.
And I resent that. I'm just saying that right now. But no, yeah, you could be long, man. Being too long can
Praise and worship could be boring too, by the way.
absolutely.
True. Yes.
And should cut it short if it is. And if your preaching is not communicating, you're not hitting your objective, then feel free to cut it short. No one's going to hate you.
Yeah.
You know it's bad when you're speaking and you're bored.
Yeah.
You're in your own.
You're looking at, you still have 2 points
Oh
left.
my
You're
gosh.
like, oh my gosh, I still got to finish this. Hey man, cut it short. People will at least remember something. I was watching a documentary on the Civil War and the Gettysburg Address. Abraham Lincoln spoke for 2.5 minutes. Most remembered words,
Right.
like in history. The guy who went up before him spoke for 2 hours.
Ugh.
And Nobody remember
Right.
nothing from what he said. He actually wrote to Abraham Lincoln, told him, "I wish I could have said what you said in 2 minutes." He hit the core of what
Yeah.
was happening there. So yeah, man, like, you want your words to last.
I think bringing it back to youth as well. I mean, attention spans, like,
Yeah.
they're used to watching like 3 to 5 minute videos or like that type of thing.
Right. I do think if your content is good and interesting and engaging, that does give you more time to teach
Yeah.
and to speak to people because they're interested and they find value in it. People get bored when they don't find a connection, when they get that's how they get disinterested in you, and then
They also get
they shut off.
resentful
Yeah.
because you don't value their time.
Right. Exactly.
And if you show that you value their time by your preparation and all those things, people will pick up on that. you
Yeah,
know?
and like read your audience too. If you see people glazing over on Sunday morning when you're speaking or teaching, like wrap it up.
Yeah,
I've done that several times.
wrap it up.
There was one I'm like, I can't even get to the next part. Let's finish this right here. And that was the only positive face I saw.
It's like,
I'm like,
everyone.
I'm gonna wrap this up right here, and they're like,
Oh, okay.
oh yeah,
Everyone sits up straight.
guy got us out quick. That leads into stop wasting precious time. What does that mean to you?
What was his angle in there a little more?
Well, there's a lot of fluff talk, like
Oh, yeah.
additional talk that's in there. And how many times are you sitting there waiting for the preacher to say something? They're like
Right.
going through like a bunch of different things or
Yeah.
multiple illustrations. That's really hard. Because I think when you're writing something and you feel like that's getting you to where it needs to go to, but editing, we always ask for videos to be shorter, right? That's one thing we always ask. And I said it earlier, like if it's past 7 minutes, I'm like, I'm out. So edit it to be shorter. We always want things to be shorter. Now there's, complaining about college football because it's 4 hours long. How can you make it shorter? How can you make it shorter? And it's not something that I really ever entertained is when you're preaching is like, how can I make this shorter?
Yeah.
And say more words in a less amount of time, more meaningful words in a less amount of time. I think that's significant, and I think that's hard to do.
Yeah, we say a movie, they'll shoot for like a months shooting a film. They'll shoot hours and hours and hours of footage, and the last final product is 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half. You have it's taking what you have and just condensing it. And when you're studying and you're getting into the Word, you have a lot. There's a lot, especially if you have a degree in theology or whatever. You have a lot to give, but you can't give it all.
Right.
You got to find what's the most important thing.
Sure, and I think sometimes preachers, particularly like Bible teaching preachers, like that are like real in depth, their capacity is far larger than what many in the congregation might be, and so talking about all these principles that make complete sense to you because you've studied it and you're immersed in it, to the people who have not, they're just sitting there going, I have no idea what he's talking about.
Right.
And that's not saying to dumb down
No.
anything, but maybe zeroing in on things.
Yeah, like get to your point.
Yeah.
I don't,
Right.
it sounds weird. I don't know why I do this, but sometimes when I prepare to speak or something, I write everything out.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it's just a security thing or a comfort thing. I don't know. But then when I get up there, since I've written it out, it's like I can process it pretty well. And if I feel like something is too wordy or I'm reiterating something, I almost edit on the spot or I edit as I go. Like I ask myself, what is the most important things that I should be telling this
Yeah.
audience right now?
I think like there's, I find the balance for some of this in like how we craft our teaching and sermons, messages. Personally, of course, I just love staying with the scripture, with biblical text. I think that keeps you kind of centered on what you want to speak about, and it let the text drive your points. Sometimes in maybe topical sermons, you get a lot of like stories and illustrations trying to illustrate the topic, and it can get out of hand kind of easily because it's not really anchored to a specific verse. Maybe not saying the topical sermons are always bad, but.
Yeah.
So that's why I like trying to track down some verses. But even with that, like you're saying, Jim, it can get out of hand. If you took 20 verses in some part of Romans, that may be way too much. I mean, in some parts, you could probably break that up into 3 messages instead of 1. So again, you got to know your audience, you got to know your people.
All that to say, the church I go to in the last few weeks, the sermons have been about an hour.
Oh,
like
gosh.
an hour long.
Are they good though?
people stick around and they're very engaged.
That's good.
And people are picking up. Usually,
I feel like that's unusual, though.
it's unusual. People usually dip out pretty early to go pick up their kids, and now we're having trouble like getting like overlap with the other service and stuff like that. Because people are sticking around to listen because they want to hear. He's a good speaker.
Yeah.
So that helps as well. And he's, people want to hear, but he's got a lot of reps in. He's got a lot of street cred with this crowd because they know him. And so there are like, I would say there's exceptions every now and then, but as a rule of thumb, especially if you're at a core where they just barely met you, being short and concise doesn't hurt you. It doesn't hurt you at all.
Yeah.
Again, goes back to knowing your audience and understanding who they are and how best to connect with them. Last one, stop not trusting the gospel.
Double negative?
Yeah, are you all right with that?
No.
Are you going to cause you to stumble?
Stop. So he says, trust the gospel is basically what he's saying.
Trust the gospel.
Oh, okay.
The message about the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, not just a message about God generically, really is the power of God unto salvation.
Do you think he means like deliver the entire message of the gospel? I think sometimes we'll focus in on certain parts, but maybe don't hold back from sharing the whole thing. We talk about this on Service Corps a lot. When we give them a chance to practice sharing a salvation message, they'll do a VBS and, they'll do an altar call. And a lot of them, this is so dumb. Major Roy Wild used to say, don't leave Jesus in the grave because they would deliver the message and they say, okay, Jesus died for your sins.
And that's the end.
They would miss the resurrection aspect of it. Yeah. So maybe, I don't know if this is what he means in this article, but don't hold back from sharing the message in its entirety.
I was at a church, the church I used to go to a long time ago in Louisiana. Every Sunday, it was he would do his message. It could be about anything, but at the very end, the last 5 minutes of the sermon was like. And some of you might have been here for the first time, and I want to let you know that he basically gave like a really small condensed version of the gospel, and they did it every Sunday, and it was like a priority to make sure you have a chance for people to get to know Jesus, or you tell them about Jesus because. It could be any Sunday is somebody's first Sunday, right?
Yeah.
And so it was always a priority. And I think that's when I read that, I'm like, I think that's kind of one thing we have to remember. You have all these things you're teaching your home congregation, the home team, but there's always visitors and you always don't forget the visitors. Don't forget, maybe they've never heard the gospel,
Yeah. Yeah. And here it says, why bury the gospel under, everything else? The gospel is where the power lies to change lives every week without fail. Start doing that. I believe in you.
Yeah. I think the gospel is obviously a larger concept than just like what Jesus did. There's this part I think it's at the end of Romans. So Paul wrote the book of Romans to the Christians in Rome, largely as a missionary support letter. It's like in chapter 15 or 16, he's basically telling them like, hey, I'm writing this to help get some support to go to Spain because I want to be a missionary there. And he talks about wanting to like impress upon them the gospel. But they're already Christians. Like, why does he want to teach the gospel to Christians? It's because it's a greater concept than just Jesus died for your sins and rose again. It's all of his life, all of his ministry. It's the way of Jesus. It's his life.
Yeah. Michael Collins, who is a favorite guest of ours over the years, different events, he, this is many, many years ago, though, but he was put in charge of an evening service at their core, a Sunday evening service.
For several months, I went to that when I lived in Bellingham.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah.
And so the first 6 weeks or so, I don't know how many, I think it was around 6 weeks, he preached the exact same sermon, and it was just the gospel. And because he said, this is what we believe, and we want everyone to be on that same thing. And so essentially half the congregation left because they just kept hearing the same sermon. And then I had a core group of people. It's like, this is what we believe and we want others to believe, essentially. And then his congregation grew dramatically after that. And so I thought of him when thinking about this, don't bury the lead.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good way to say it.
And keep that as part of really the core of everything what we do. That's really why we're delivering these messages. Any other thoughts? All right. Well, thank you. If you're listening or have questions or maybe need some advice on anything we've talked about of life in general, I could be your life coach if you want. I don't know if that's a good thing. Please reach out
Start
to
a
us.
YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Way to bring it.
Yep. You can send us a message on social media at Say Network or email us at sayconnect@gmail.com. Anything we've talked about in this episode will be linked in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe to the Say Network podcast on iTunes for updates on new episodes. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with a brand new episode. You know, we say that every time, but it's always a brand new episode. We don't do repeats.
And we're never sure which one's going to be the last episode. So
Yeah, well, that's true too. So
It's a little generic.
we'll be back with another episode. And so thank you. See you.